How are you all doing tonight? My name is Bigbobbedboi, and welcome to A Hunter's Guide to Pets. The best pets for PvE. First, let's narrow down what I mean by PvE, because anything not against other players is technically PvE. I'm mainly going to be talking about pets for raids, but it will also largely apply to dungeons. I'll also make a small note about a pet for soloing dungeons and things. I'm not going to talk about pets for leveling here, that definitely needs its own video. So what do we want a pet to do in PvE, especially raids? Well, two things. Do damage and not die. Outside of training our pet the right resistances and proper pet control, there's not a lot we can do to improve pet survivability in raids. So let's talk about the do damage part. Cats. Yeah, cats can do a lot of damage. They have the highest attack modifier at plus 10%, have a variety of attack speeds so you can tailor that to your situation. They can learn prowl, bite, and dash. So cats have good abilities, can do a lot of damage, and they are one of the best pets for PvE. The downside is they're pretty selfish. They don't bring any utility. So no group buffs or any debuffs. They are there strictly to do a lot of damage, and they accomplish that. They also eat fish. Gross. So what pets can bring a good debuff? Owls, bats, and birds. They can bring a good debuff. I would skip birds because their family stat modifier, while good, isn't quite as good for raids as owls and bats. Even further, bats slightly beat out owls because of bite. Not that anyone agrees on claw versus bite. And it's easy to tame a ZG bat. So bats can learn bite, screech, and dive. Plus they have a good family stat modifier at plus 7% attack with neutral armor and HP. But how are bats competitive against cats if they have a worse attack stat modifier? Screech. It's screech. So screech is actually really nice and the best debuff a pet can bring to raids. There's a ton of theory crafting on this, and the consensus is you can reduce a boss's attack power by around like 290 to 300. Talented Demo Shout is around 190, and Screech is 100. Together they bring about a 30% damage reduction. That's amazing. Just make sure you grab rank 4 Screech from one of these guys first. The only bad thing about bats, have the most annoying diet, for real. Only fungus and fruit. Just eat some mage bread. That brings us to wolves. I love wolves. Now, the stat modifier for wolves is pretty underwhelming. Neutral attack, neutral HP, and 5% armor. But like bats, not only can they learn dash and bite, they have an exceptional wolf-only family ability, Furious Howl. So if we look at Furious Howl here, I know it doesn't look that impressive, but it is. That damage adds up really quickly, especially if you're a true shot or a hunter already buffing some melee. The buff is group wide, so 51 damage for each party member averaged out. 5 times 51, that's an extra 255 damage every 10 seconds. That's solid. Now I couldn't independently test if weapon damage percent skills, like ambush, take Howl into account. As in, do you get 250% of 51 or just 51? For some reason, I couldn't find a rogue that wanted to test this in DM with me for an hour. Strange. But I'm 99% positive it doesn't. You can see the buff shows up to the side of weapon damage, not actually reflected in your weapon damage. So, I don't think that works, sadly. Interestingly, Howl is the only pet skill that's a buff. That is insane. There are a ton of different situations where you can use that to your advantage, especially when soloing. If you aggro an AoE pack like the pods in DM that spawn a bunch of ads, they only have proximity aggro on you, so your pet can Howl, buff you in itself, and pull threat on those mobs. This is super important for soloing dungeons and keeping mobs on your pet. Lastly, your pet can still howl even when it's not meleeing. This means if there's a fight where a pet will be deaded immediately in melee range, your wolf can at least contribute something by standing back and howling for you, even if it's not very much. The downsides to wolf? Really, there aren't any. Just wish it had a bit better pet family modifiers. Alright, as much as I love wolves, there are some downsides. So it's actually pretty difficult for your pet to be positioned properly to hit everyone with howl. That's why I factored in 5 targets, not 6. You, your 4 party members, and your wolf would be 6. But even that is optimistic. If you are only hitting the wolf and half your melee with Howl, the numbers can start to favor another pet like a cat. You also have to account for it being a buff. Depending on how hardcore your melee are, they could start approaching the buff limit, so that's something to double check as well. Alright, so those are the 3 best pets for PvE in my opinion, but there are 2 honorable mentions I want to go over real fast. Wind Serpents. Wind Serpents are excellent pets. In a raid, they kind of fill the same selfish high DPS role as a cat with a 7% attack modifier and its skill set. As we covered in the pet families and abilities video, they have Lightning Breath, which is excellent. One of the best pet abilities. It's ranged and magic damage. On fights that punish melee or extremely high armor targets, the Wind Serpent can pull ahead. And boars. Yeah, boars are great. So even though their stat modifiers are not that well suited for dungeons and raids, on fights that have a ton of movement or require you to bounce back and forth between different mobs, their insane mobility could give them enough uptime over other pets to pull ahead. Although that is a pretty specific situation. They also eat any trash you throw at them, so that's a nice bonus. Alright, well, in my opinion, those are the best pets for PvE. I hope there was some information in here that helped you out. If not, well, shit, I tried. If you enjoyed the video, hit that sub button because I have a lot more hunter-related content coming. Subs are a big, big part of making the channel grow, and I really do appreciate each and every one I get. The best pets for PvP is the next video in the pipeline, followed by best pets for leveling. I hope you're looking forward to those. But that is going to be all for this one. I really appreciate you all watching, and I will see you all for the next one.